The affordability of the San Fernando Valley was particularly appealing, and it became the fastest growing region in the United States, doubling in population in the 1940s and then doubling again in the 1950s to over 700,000 people. On the other side of LA, a preview of the suburban home building style now familiar to anyone living in an American city was launched in Lakewood, or what was known as Tomorrow's City today. Every day, 4,000 workers completed at least 50 homes in a giant outdoor assembly line. That was roughly one dwelling completed every 10 minutes. Unfortunately, the FHA did much more than trigger a housing construction boom. By only ensuring a certain type of home, it shaped what kinds of houses would be built, where they would be constructed, and even who would buy them. It prioritized detached, new-built houses on wide streets and cul-de-sacs, preferring expansiveness over density, and favored places near arterial roads rather than public transit. As a federal agency operating at the height of the Cold War, the FHA was not immune to issues of national security. Los Angeles was then the center of a booming military and aviation tech industry, a hub for the likes of Lockheed Aircraft Corporation, which theoretically made it a target for Soviet missile strikes. One way to protect American assets from nuclear catastrophe, the thinking went, was to physically increase the size of the target by encouraging residents to move away from city centers. This little-known policy of defensive dispersal was quite literally a national security effort to incentivize suburban sprawl through affordable home loans. By the mid-1950s, planned communities spreading for miles around downtown LA were dominated by an ever-expanding network of charming ranch-style bungalows. Reportedly, the home design that best withstood nuclear blasts. The FHA's policies also excluded Americans of color, by design, by refusing to insure mortgages in racially mixed neighborhoods. As whites left America's cities in droves for the brand new suburbs, minorities were sidelined in less desirable multi-family urban dwellings.
The racism was very blatant. It's a white man's neighborhood. That's how these tracts were sold. So this was the reason why you saw restrictive covenants, things of this nature. It was to go along with that California myth that this was the new white utopia.
All this was going on as 5 million African Americans were moving from the Jim Crow South to cities in the Northeast, Midwest, and West. By 1960, the FHA had underwritten tens of millions of mortgages on new houses worth a total of $120 billion, but just 2% of these loans went to non-whites. Even though this type of discrimination is now illegal, its lasting effects have reduced generational wealth and educational opportunities in communities of color. Another development that has dramatically changed life in Los Angeles has been the freeway. In the 1940s and 50s, the volume of traffic and intersections, combined with the size of the region, meant trips by car were taking longer and longer. The freeway allowed for high-speed, non-stop travel over greater distances, but it came at a high cost: the decimation of neighborhoods mostly home to lower-income and minority families. The Mexican-American community of Boyle Heights had wide swaths demolished to make room for multiple freeways and interchanges, while only one freeway was planned in white, wealthy Beverly Hills, until even it was stopped by local protests and has never been built. The construction of freeways also meant the continued expansion of development, creating even greater demand for water from ever more distant sources, culminating in one of the most audacious megaprojects in human history, the State Water Project, or SWP, launched in the 1960s.
There is no